Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people. And today I have a returning champion, someone who's done the podcast before, my friend Frank DeCaro, who has a brand new, beautiful, shiny, glittery coffee table book out called Disco. The subheading is Music, Movies, and Mania Under the Mirror Ball. It's a beautiful coffee table book about one of my favorite subjects in the world, disco. And I was so excited to talk to Frank about it because I had lots of thoughts. I also want to mention that he's got an event happening at Book Soup on the 15th of October. And I'm going to try to get this episode out a little early. So if you're hearing it right when it comes out, maybe you can run and see him. He's also going to be at Just Fabulous in Palm Springs on November 3rd and Vroman's in Pasadena on October 24th. But before we get to the interview with Frank, I want to remind you that this podcast, Dennis Anyone, is brought to you by me. I love doing it. It makes me happy. It makes me feel connected. And I also love to celebrate creative people because it's not always an easy road. But if you like the podcast, there are a few things you can do to support it. You can go to DennisAnyone.net and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. It helps me cover my expenses and my life because that's where we are. And I appreciate that. There's a thing on there, too, called Buy Me a Coffee where you could just kind of buy me a coffee or two. And it's a nice, tasty way to say thank you. So I appreciate that. The other thing you could do is become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows, fun queer shows under the Derek and Romaine podcast banner. And for a monthly fee, you get my show early. And you get all these other very cool, fun gay shows. So learn about that at dnrstudios.com. All right, enough of the plugs. Let's get to the disco time. Here is my interview with Frank DeCaro. Joining me now from the San Fernando Valley where I am, it's Frank DeCaro, my friend Frank. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Dennis, how are you? I'm so excited to be back on your show.
Well, I love your book so much. It's called Disco, Music, Movies, and Mania Under the Mirror Ball. I love disco. I love disco and I love you. So this is going to be juicy.
And I love alliteration, as is clear from that subtitle. Once I got started, I was like, how many M's can I get going? Mania was the one. We were like, well, all right, we could do Mania and we've got music, but what's I was like, well, movies, we'll have to call it that.
Yes.
But
now,
I just wish
cover,
I'd made it easier.
The cover photo is a glamorous woman with very little on. Tell me about the photo.
I can't see her in the photo at all there. She disappears. There she is. Oh, okay. There you are.
There you are. What's her story?
That's my girl. Okay, we don't know who she is. I know that's bad. I'm supposed to go, I know who that, I don't know who it is. But we found that photo. And, when you're doing a book, they don't tell you in journalism school that someday you'll also be a photo editor. There's no preparation for that. So you really do have to not only pick out all the photos, you have to secure the rights to all the photos and all that stuff. So when I was going through all these various agencies, I pulled a lot of photos. And she was one of the Studio 54 goers who just looked so great. And they said to me, a woman on the cover of a book tends to do better than a man. Because my original idea was, okay, we'll get a muscle man. And all he'll be wearing, he'll have a mirror ball right in his crotch, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, guys are scared to buy those, and you're limiting your audience. And
interesting.
Because apparently straight men will not buy a book with a half-naked man on the cover. So they were like, but if you put a woman on the cover, everybody likes that. And so, but it was one of the options. But once we saw that, we were just like, no, she's the answer. She's the follow me into this crazed history of disco and this colorful history, and let's do it naked. That's kind of the story of her. I wonder if, was she going to like a Bob Mackie fashion show there, or what was her deal? Or was she just someone on a good night going in and ready to have fun? Apparently a lot of, well, probably not a lot, but there were women who would show up in trench coats and go to coat check and then walk away from coat check wearing a pair of heels and a pair of earrings and then go dance. And so I had a friend who is quoted in the book saying, I started to recognize women by their nipples. Well, he was one of the people who went all the time and he had great stories. So,
well,
anyway.
it looks like she's feeling herself, which I am going to bring up later because I think it's a theme about disco generally. But
Yes.
I want to start with, why did you want to write a book about disco?
When my last book was called Drag Combing Through the Bigwigs of Show Business. And one of the people I interviewed said, even though drag is really popular now, we are still treated like parsley on the plate. We're the handful of glitter that gets thrown at something. We're not taken seriously. And the reviews of the book, which were all good, but the reviews said it's shining a light where one hadn't been shown before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, well, I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of making people aware of things I love and have always loved, but things that didn't quite get the respect that they deserve. I have an affinity and I identify with the underdog because I feel that the success that I've had was unexpected, you know, and so I'm drawn to people who are successful in spite of everything, you know, and I think disco is one of those art forms that was so vilified for so many years that it needed sort of someone to stand up for it and say, if you say disco sucks, it doesn't, you do, you know, and make that known in a lighthearted but scholarly way. You know, I mean, the book has a lot of good stuff in there, and I did all my homework, but it's fun to read. But it does take it seriously, the idea of you should pay attention to disco because you already love the music and you don't know much other than let's dance to it at a bar mitzvah or a wedding or whatever event you're going to. So I wanted to do for disco what I did for drag, and in the sense of taking it seriously and saying you need to not only enjoy this, you need to respect this. And I think that's the goal of the book. So
what surprised you in your research? Was there a pocket of something that you didn't know about?
You know, you and I are pop culture junkies, and
sure.
we can talk about stuff and we go down a rabbit. You know, you don't even need the IMDb to go down a rabbit hole that's as obscure as could be. So I always think, oh, well, I've heard of most everything. And the chapter I was most excited about initially, although it changes every time you sit at the computer, was the bandwagon chapter, which is disco for people who weren't there for it. When I say everyone recorded a disco record, I'm only, that's like 2% hyperbole and 98% the truth. It was, I thought I'd known everything because I'd had the Ethel Merman, who's the Broadway diva, of course, legendary, for people who don't know, has the Ethel Merman disco album. And I defy anyone to listen to all 7 or 8 tracks. Okay, it is.
First of all, I love that it's only 7 or 8 tracks. Like,
yeah. Well, she recorded like 20, and they were just like, "This is too much. This is enough. We can't put people through all of this." And it's 1 track is the greatest thing ever. 2 is you're getting a little queasy. By 3, you start throwing up and running. You know, it's hard to listen to the whole thing. In one sitting.
That album is sort of brought up as the example of when disco went too far. When, like, that's sort of the jumping the shark thing that people often talk about when they talk about disco overstayed its welcome. That's that thing that they bring up. Yes.
What's different about this book is I love it. Okay?
You love it. You love it.
I embrace the genius of I Feel Love by Donna Summer and Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotte and, all these people who made that record. David Bowie said it's like 40 years ago or 50 years ago said it sounded like the future. And I love it's I Feel Love still sounds like
it still sounds like the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a brilliant, brilliant song. So anyway, I love that, but I also love that there was the Ethel Merman disco album.
Right, and the lunchbox that I had, the disco lunchbox that I had.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, to answer the previous question, the thing that I discovered was that the people who had climbed aboard the disco bandwagon was so far and wide that even I don't remember many of them. I had no idea Bill Cosby had a disco album called Disco Bill.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
And kind of parody.
Yeah.
It's like, I think there's a song called Boogie on Your Face.
Right. Which he would occasionally do.
Yes, it turns out that, yeah. Who knew at that time? There was that comedian in the 70s he was doing shtick right out of vaudeville. You can call me Ray, or you can call me Jay, but you doesn't have to call me Johnson.
Yeah.
There's a disco song called Disco Johnson.
Yeah.
Martha Reeve did Rolling in the Streets or Skating in the Streets, I guess it was. So it was a roller disco version of Dancing in the Street. Connie Francis had a disco record. Frank Sinatra had 2 that you can download on Amazon or iTunes.
You had to do it, or you had to leave show business for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was people wanted
either
to
take a break and go on an island, or do something disco. There was a disco episode.
Seem relevant. It was a way to seem relevant.
Yeah.
It really was.
There was a disco episode of Barnaby Jones in your book, which Buddy Ebsen, cop show from this, and he was old then. Like, he's old doing disco, Barnaby Jones.
He was supposed to be the Tin Woodsman in 1939's The Wizard of Oz, but he was allergic to the paint. Okay, so that's how old he is. So here it is in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he is silk and he hustles at the end of the episode with this cute blonde who's like a third of his age. Yeah, there were episodes. Some nights, it was so prevalent in the 70s, by the late 70s. There was one night where there was this sort of Silence of the Lambs-esque episode of a gritty cop show called Eye Shot.
Right.
And it was about a guy who was, I don't know if he was skinning women after he met them at the disco. He was doing something horrible to women after he met them at the disco, or they turned him down, or, for dancing, whatever it was. And it was opposite the Playboy Playmate roller disco pajama party. Okay, so that was like, oh, it's Tuesday or whatever day it
right.
was. It was so all-consuming, and it's fun that it was. I mean, the only thing that all-consuming to really have as much impact on the culture, I think, is hip-hop. I mean, and disco gave hip-hop a push in the beginning because they were, Rapper's Delight samples a disco song, and that was one of the first big hits. And, Debbie Harry showed white people could rap with Rapture, and she was showing that punk rockers could do disco with Heart of Glass. And I love her quote. She said, "We decided as a punk band that there was nothing more punk than us doing disco." And I was like,
right.
That's kind of punk.
It's justified. Yeah. Boom. Lays it down. Mic drop. Your book,
and she was gorgeous doing it. So
your book opens with the story about the disco demolition in Kaminsky Park in 1976. I've been researching this incident lately because I have an idea for a screenplay about a gay tween who gets dragged there by his brother and realizes it's this night, and he tries to stop it.
I can put you in touch with someone who was there. He didn't get in, but he did come home with records that people were throwing. Right. He kept picking up the disco records and took them home with him.
The idea, from what my research is and reading in your book as well, is it was a promotion for a radio station. They needed to get butts in seats, and it turned into this huge thing. They really tapped into this moment with the people that came, and they brought a disco record. You would get a discount ticket if you did 98 cents.
It was 98 cents, which was like the numbers of the FM station was like 98.7 or something like that. And
the DJ did a big show in between. It was 2 games, a doubleheader, and they did a big show in the halftime, and they blew up this box of records, and it was just a kind of a stunt. But it did kind of kill disco. It filtered out from there, and pretty soon the radio stations were changing, and that was it. It did that, right? It did kind of.
I think that it certainly put a damper on things in America. But I think that this is my thesis, and I think I've thought about this even more after the book was done. I think the reason we thought disco was dead was that the people who were reporting about pop music were the straight white men who were gunning for disco to be dead,
right.
At least in America.
They wanted it to be dead.
They wanted it to be dead, and they were the only voices that we were hearing in newspapers, which were the huge, and rock magazines,
right.
Which were the way we were consuming our music news in those days. There weren't 8 million Instagram accounts dedicated to disco preservation. So we didn't hear that in Australia, disco was as big as ever well into the 80s, and that Can't Stop the Music, the Village People movie, was a huge hit in Australia. We didn't hear that Italo disco, the Italian disco branch of things, was going strong. And we didn't hear stories that the new wave artists that Americans would embrace in the 80s were all saying, oh, yeah, we're like disco for depressed people. It's like we all love disco, but now we want to say something else. So if disco's moment was over, and disco's moment in the sun was over, I think in America it was hastened by the fact that that was the news we were told.
Right.
You know? I interviewed an African-American DJ in 1987 who was one of the architects of the Detroit techno sound, which is the house music of Detroit. It's called techno. And yes, that's right. And he said most writers at newspapers and magazines are not afraid to be out of touch with what Black people like.
Right.
And that was almost 40 years ago that he said that to me in an interview. And sadly, that was what we didn't realize at the time, and probably what is still going on in some ways, where there's it's probably a little better now, I hope, but certainly at the time, nobody thought something like house music was important to listen to, you know. And here I was, this little queer boy at the newspaper saying, I want to write about this. And the music critic at our newspaper at the time in Detroit was furious with me. And I think part of it was that music was his beat, and he thought I was stepping on toes. And maybe I was. But he wasn't writing about house music anytime soon. And he said, it's not time to write about house music yet. You know, and I was like, well, yes, it is. It's like, just because you're not into it. My friends and I are, and we, and we're, white kids from the suburbs in our 20s, and we're going to, we do like this music. And so I wrote about it, and he was not happy with me. But it was funny to go back and be able to steal my own quotes, and my own interview from practically 40 years earlier. But that was what you said about what else did I learn or uncover. I do think that was one of the biggies for me, was the idea that the way we were consuming our news, we were told disco was dead, and I think that was something we didn't know. We were like, oh, I guess it's all and yeah, there was a cooling of record sales and stuff, but was it a cooling of record sales because people were told it was dead, or were they,
or were their personal tastes changing? I think they were told it was dead, and they were like, oh, I better get off this. Yeah, like the media is telling me, the culture is telling me we're done. I guess we're done.
Meanwhile, though, if you listen to new wave music, you can dance to all of it. It's really dancey. Yeah. There's nothing more danceable than what is it, Blue Monday by who sings Blue Monday?
New Order,
anyway,
Depeche Mode?
New Order, yes, thank you.
Okay,
New Order.
It was one of those.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
New Order's Blue Monday. It's like they keep remixing it.
Right.
Thank you, which is great. But it's like, you listen to it, it's like, oh, this is a disco song. Yeah. It's depressing, but it's a disco song. So
one of the themes that I picked up as I was researching this incident and like exploring this idea was like, in some ways, the backlash to disco was a war on sophistication, because disco was aspirational. You had to dress a certain way. You had to dance. You had to be free to dance and hopefully dance well or not. But like, it asked something of you. It didn't. You weren't just passively listening to music. It asked something of you. And there were people that didn't like that, or didn't feel like they fit in, or didn't feel like they could do it. It was threatening to them. Even the DJ that started the promotion had a parody song called "Do You Think I'm Disco?" and it was kind of like, I can't do this. I don't fit in this. Yeah. It was later sort of the themes of, was it homophobic? Was it racist? Was that an undercurrent? Because queer and Black people really loved disco and made disco. And it was just this moment that as I was reading about it, I was like, this feels kind of like now. It kind of feels like people who are able to feel free, which is what I think that woman on your cover is doing. Like, she's feeling herself. That bugs people, certain people, or certain people feel like they're losing something, or that they can't be a part of it. Were you struck by how the themes of freedom and repression and insecurity and all of those things sort of resonate with today as you were putting this book together?
Yeah, I was struck by how much it was like Disco Demolition Night looked like a MAGA rally today.
Yes,
it was this demonstration.
The same.
Yeah, it's this toxically masculine, or this let's say it right. It's a display of toxic masculinity just ramped up in a huge way, and I think that Disco Sucks had 30% to do with people not liking the music and 70% to do with who was liking the music.
Who was liking the music and feeling left out or feeling like they were losing something. We used to rule the school.
It wasn't about straight white men. For the first time, the pop charts were about people of color, women, particularly strong women of color, and queer people. And I say in the book, one of my favorite lines is I say, in the right outfit, Sylvester ticked all three boxes.
Yes, that's a great line. The book is full of really Frank DeCaro witticisms, and your voice.
Thank you.
I love it.
I like that, and I like the thing about that Anne Margaret did a disco album. And I was like, she almost drowned in baked beans. She fell 20 feet and almost killed herself in Lake Tahoe, and people still say her disco album is the worst thing to happen. So I do like that line as well. But yeah, there was that problem with the audience. The scary thing to me is that the old white guys who were young white guys when they were putting together Disco Demolition Night, do not even cotton to the fact that the optics are bad. I could buy if you said to me, look, we weren't trying to be racist or homophobic. We were just young, and I understand how it looks like that, but we hated the music.
Well, they lost jobs to the music. They lost jobs, and like there were things you could point to that were like tangible life changes that affected them. Sure.
Yeah, but it's the same as people getting angry now, and and it's that same old chestnut about freedom isn't pie. It's like there's enough for everybody. And but the guys who were so threatened by disco were upset because, again, now they were supposed to be physically fit and wear a great suit and be able to be good looking enough to get you into Studio 54. And that was a lot more to ask than I'm going to wear jeans and a black T-shirt,
and have a beer.
And have a beer and have. Wear a T-shirt that says, if you can read this, the bitch fell off the bike, kind of,
which was an Elton John B-side, the bitch fell off the bike.
Whatever, yes. But, I think that it was threatening. But one of the guys from the Chicago thing who put it together said, look, we didn't like New York anyway. So it was very, we had that chip on our shoulder already. Right. And these disco guys were taking our women. The women wanted to go to these gay discos.
Yeah. They were losing something. And that was
very threatening. So they really were threatened by the whole situation. And they weren't wrong. It's like, I want to give them a little bit of credit. It wasn't about them. The problem was they had real trouble dealing with the fact that it's not just about them. And I think that's where we really get into the parallels to today. It's like people are very upset that other people want to be taken seriously.
Right.
Which goes back to the theme of writing about disco, because I'm going, you have to take this seriously now. I'm tired of you not taking it seriously.
I think there are a lot of people in our country who wouldn't describe themselves as racist or homophobic, but they don't want to live in a world where straight white Christian people don't matter a little bit more. They need to matter. They need to matter.
More.
They need to matter more. They go around with racist words in their tongues ready to come out, but they do. They don't want equality really across the board. No. We need to be. Yeah. We need to have an edge. Let's talk about fashion, because I'm obsessed with disco fashion. To this day, if I see a movie or a TV show with somebody wearing Angel's Flight trousers, I will pause it. I might take a screen grab. I think whatever fashion is in when you come of age, when you it sort of lights a thing in you. I remember I owned a few pairs, but I was a little young. But I remember they were still kind of around, and our choir was going to get them for our uniform for swing choir, and the director, I remember his words. He was concerned that they showed the plumbing, and I was like, "Yeah, they show the plumbing. That's what's so awesome about them." And to this day, like, I wear them sometimes at Mismatch Game if I can fit in them that month. And like, I have like ads for them on my wall as like a little like display. I just love that aesthetic. You have a picture from the movie 54 of Ryan Phillippe in a polyester shirt that
he looks good.
Fits him. It's not too tight, but it's just, I could look at that photo from now until Christmas. Like, so talk to me about disco fashion, and are you a fan of it? And what you remember about it, because you've written a lot about fashion.
I have. I used to write fashion back in the day for 12 years. It's really, and at this point, it feels like it happened to somebody else. You know, I was like, oh yeah, I was at Donatella Versace's apartment, and the supermodels are running around, and it was a party for Johnny's show, and the, you know, yeah, it feels like that happened to somebody else. It's like this vague memory.
I know that same sensation. I was just talking to somebody about something that happened in the 90s, and there were stars around and all that stuff, and I was like, did that happen? Is that this same life? Anyway, so
because now I'm like, and then we went to Rosemarie's memorial service. You know, that's where I'm at now. You know, it's a much different head. But I love the 70s fashion. And the theme that people kept going to was the clothes had to look like something you could dance in and get out of quickly. So it was
they would
really
just slink off of you.
They expressed the newfound sexual freedom that gay people and women were feeling. And so there was it was very body conscious, very stretchy and movable, and yet the shoes were these torture devices, these platforms, you know. But they looked, you needed it, and it looked great. But it's amazing. I was trying to figure out how best to illustrate it, and thank heaven, Bob Mackie said, "No one's ever seen these illustrations. Would you want them for your book?" And I was like, I almost died. I was, of course.
Wow.
Apparently, they would send young disco artists, wannabe disco artists, and they'd say, Bob, zhuzh her up a little bit, make her look disco. And so we'd create these looks. And a lot of them didn't get past the sketch stage. And he said none of the women that from those sessions went on to a huge career. But certainly a lot of the young people now who are playing disco influenced music, Pink or Miley Cyrus, or, they're wearing, either real Bob Mackie or things that look inspired by Bob Mackie. I look at, we included a great photo of Pam Grier, and part of me was like, what does this really have to do with disco? And it was just like, because that was who was in your mind when you were thinking about what you wanted to look like when you went out.
Right.
You know? So I thought, let's put that in there. Let's have this, the knee boots and the sort of midi length, and it swirls so beautifully. And I love talking. I do an interview with Norma Kamali in the book, Q&A with her, and she was very kind to take the time. She was not only someone who created all that body conscious sort of workout fashion that you could wear for other occasions and really pioneered that. She also was Ian Schrager's girlfriend at the time of Studio 54. So she created those sleeping bag coats that the doormen wore in the winter. And initially they were sleeping bags.
Wow.
They were all, she's like, she stayed up one night, cut up a sleeping bag and made this sleeping bag coat. And they liked it so much that he and Steve Rebell ordered them. And so the guys were all wearing them. And she said people thought if you wore a sleeping bag coat, once you started to sell them, that you'd get right into Studio 54. And she said that was not going to happen. She said it was not, there was no guarantee of wearing anything was going to get you in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. I was going to say, I love that the Studio 54, even though there were other clubs all over the country, Studio 54 was this mecca of disco that the whole media world looked to. And the people who were going and getting in, they were like, that was pissing people off in the Midwest because they knew they weren't going to be the ones. But it was a time where gay people could kind of walk to the front of the line for the first time and know if they were cute and young, they were going to get in. But it was, they said, a dictatorship at the door and a democracy on the dance floor. So if you saw Brooke Shields dancing, you could sidle up to her and freak out,
right,
and do your thing. And people did. So it was that great feeling of, you're a VIP just like everyone else. And the hallmark of disco was that the audience was as important as the performers. And that was a big thing. The show was as much on the dance floor as on the turntable, upstairs. And so I think that all kind of, that democracy on the dance floor was really a big deal and a hallmark of the whole movement. And it was about diversity then, and that was fairly new concept. Rich society people dancing with the guy who was doing the windows at Bendel's,
Right. If you were
was different.
If you were feeling yourself, if you had the moves, if you look cool, you could. It wasn't about class or race or higher. There wasn't a hierarchy based on any of those things.
It was about fabulousness.
It was about fabulousness. Were you
Yeah.
fabulous? That might be the title of this episode. It was about fabulousness. Describe for me your quintessential Frank DeCaro disco outfit from back in the day. What's the thing that you owned that was the most disco?
I still have it. I have Jordache jeans.
Of course you do.
With the swoopy pocket stitching, flare leg. I had Fry boots, which were those dopey clunky boots with a chunky heel, and I had a Huckapoo terry cloth little top that was stretchy and color blocked or something ridiculous, and I still have the jeans. The other stuff may have gone to live with Jesus, but I still have the Jordache jeans.
Jesus is actually wearing them.
Yes, they fit on one leg now, but I wore them when I saw the Bee Gees in concert. And all right, you and I both talk sometimes about being woo woo about stuff, or too woo woo, or less or more woo woo. So my first book event for disco was, sit down for this, 45 years to the hour of my going to the Bee Gees concert.
Wow.
Which was 10 blocks from where I was doing the event.
What concert tour would it have been? Like, was it?
It was 1979.
The height of
tragedy.
Saturday Fever.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'd done the one album after
Spirits Having Flown.
Yes. After Saturday Night Fever. And so there was, and Tragedy is still my absolute favorite. Do you know? Oh, I hope you don't know about this because it'll be really good. But you're too hip, so you probably know.
I might not.
Do you know the DGs?
No. Okay. Who are the DGs?
DG as in Dave Grohl.
Oh, really?
Foo Fighters are big Bee Gee fans, and they did an album, and half of it is Bee Gees covers called "Hail Satin." Not Satan.
Hail Satin, love.
It came out, I think, during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And their version of Tragedy, forgive me, Barry Gibb, made best the Bee Gees.
Right.
Okay. Well, Barry didn't agree to an interview for the book, so you know what? So heck with him.
Yeah.
But it really was. They have these tracks. They're so good. But that was the thing. It's the other thing I think I learned in putting this together is now that you can download anything,
Yeah.
and you go on a music, even if you're still one of those people who insists on having files on your computer of the music as opposed to using a streaming service, you can leave with a Fats Waller song from 1930 and Kylie Minogue's latest, and it's all music, It's just on your tray at the cafeteria of music.
Yeah.
And it didn't used to be that way. And I think that when you realize that disco's cool enough for Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters, so anyone who's still holding to disco sucks is an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like, because you're not as cool as the Foo Fighters. So if they're cool with it, you should be cool with it. So
in each, throughout the book, you have different years listed and all the hit songs of that year. And when I go through and look at them, there's some that I don't know, but a lot of them I go, classic, holds up, September, holds up, I Will Survive, holds up. Like, these are songs you still hear, you still love. Like, they're built to last. There's a reason that we still hear this music. It just makes you feel good. My question is there something musically that defines a disco song? Is it a 4/4 beat, or is it what makes something a disco song? Or is it like you know it when you hear it?
I think if you're going to do strictly speaking, it's that 4/4 that, basically you hear thump, thump, thump.
Right.
And that's in the strict interpretation. But I do think if you can dance to it and it's hopeful and about empowerment.
So you think it might be thematic?
Thematic. I think that when you look at some of the songs that I've included later on, no one's asked me this before, but they scratch the disco itch more than they are disco. You know,
Right.
I mean, is Robin's Dancing on My Own strict? Is it thump thump? No, not necessarily. But is Flowers really a disco song by Miley Cyrus? It is. I Will Survive for a new generation,
Right.
even if it's not filled with strings.
Yeah.
So I think that there's strict disco. And then there's stuff that sort of scratches the disco itch later on. But I think it's both the sound and thematic. But I do think there's a certain lushness to the true disco stuff, but it spanned so long that, you can say, Rock the Boat, that early 70s.
Yeah.
Don't tip the boat over. Right. It's very different than I Feel Love or Last Dance, but it's kind of all in there.
Right.
And you know what I thought was really interesting, and this I should have known. That, it makes sense when you hear it, but you don't think about it. The DJ, one of the DJs that I spoke to, who was the original Studio 54 DJ, Nicky Ciano, said there wasn't enough disco music for you to play disco music all night, so you had to play danceable rhythm and blues or anything. And he said, so as DJs, we learned to play anything. He said because it wasn't. They were already having discos before there was a genre of music called disco.
Right.
So. Years before, I mean, it's like they really from 70 to 74, you didn't have the first disco record, really. And they often say that the truest disco record was Never Can Say Goodbye, Gloria Gaynor's version, because it was mixed in with other songs. You could put the whole album side on and it never stopped, till it was done. And that was kind of new. So it became more and more where disco influenced the charts and influenced, everything. We mentioned Barnaby Jones. Oh my God, it was Barnaby Jones, Chips, Charlie's Angels, What's Happening? The Jeffersons has an episode called Every Night Fever. WKRP has a two-parter called Dr. Fever and Mr. Hyde, and it's about, I think that's the name of it, Mr. Tide. Anyway, but it was about how Johnny Fever succumbs to disco because the paycheck is so big.
Yeah.
To host this disco show.
I bet Gary Sandy's pants were even tighter in the disco episode. I would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm the guy who thinks Howard Hessman was always the hottest. I would do. Although Gary Sandy's pants did get a lot of us through
a lot of things.
Puberty. Yes.
You talk about Dancing Queen by ABBA in the book. That is a dance floor song, but it's not that fast. There's something magic about that song. Like, why do we have to dance to it? It's not a fast dance song, but it's irresistible. It's like a drug, right?
Yeah,
and it's uniquely its thing.
Yeah. So I asked Andy Bell from Erasure, who did that album called ABBA-esque as a member of Erasure, right? So I thought, if anyone is going to know about this, he'll know. So I said, is ABBA disco? Truly disco? And he said, no. He said, but they have a huge disco yacht that they can pull into port anytime they want to. And it was like, what a great way to put it.
Yes.
But Dancing Queen, because when you're listening to Dancing Queen, when you're listening to disco music, you are the Dancing Queen.
Right.
So we listen to it. Please, I want the third ABBA movie to be called Dancing Queen, and she has a gay kid who has to go off to London and become a star in the West End.
Yeah.
That's my storyline of what the next movie should be.
I like that. I remember when Hot Stuff was on the charts, Donna Summer, and I remember Steve Allen, the comedian, on some variety show reading the lyrics seriously. Like, his point was, modern music, this, is dumb. Like, it was sort of to look down his nose at it. He later came on a cruise ship that I was working on, and he wasn't that nice. So fuck him. But
oh, good. I'm glad you used the F word, because I was going to say
yes.
It bothers me because Fly Robin Fly has about 7 words.
Yeah.
Get Up and Boogie, I think, is the entire Get Up and Boogie. That's right. Okay. 6 words. That's all the lyrics to Get Up and Boogie. And I think it won a Grammy. So yes, so people were mad about that whole.
Yeah, but it was dumb.
But there are moments, as much as I love disco, I mean, it's unfair to judge it that way. And yet there are moments where I remember, this has got to be 20 years ago. We're in a club and a really infectious dance track comes on, and then you hear the lyrics, and the entire lyrics are, I want to fuck you in the ass. And I looked at Jim, I said, who wrote this? Cole Porter? It's so subtle and beautiful. And so there are moments where you're just like, really? When you listen to, there are things in some hip hop songs that I didn't even know girls' bodies could do. Hear, if you're a gay, a gold star, or a platinum, or whatever we are, it's like, and you've never experienced the gorgeousness of a woman, and you're okay with that. It's kind of shocking because you're just like, girls can do that. That they can make you might have to clean up your front seat because a girl got all turned up.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Could happen.
See, and smell like, Chanel perfume.
Yeah.
That can't be, they don't make wet spots, and that's just yucky. No, girls don't do. But then you find out stuff that they have, so we're all pigs is what I'm saying. Basically, as men are disgusting. So apparently so are girls too, if they're turned on enough. And
did you ever go to Studio 54?
No, except for there was a party that Sirius XM, where I used to work,
right,
for the 40th anniversary, and Nicky Ciano, the original DJ, was spinning, and it was really fun. So I've been in that space, but they really made it look like it did back in the day. But no, I wasn't cool enough. We did go every week to Chicago's early 80s equivalent, which was Dugan's Bistro. And I write about that in the book. And oh my God, we had such a good time. But see, that was the thing. News didn't travel quite as fast. So disco wasn't dead, and look, studio continued into the early 80s. Yeah. Clubs continued, and clubs just morphed into new wave clubs. They went from disco to new wave to whatever. Gay bars always played, dance music. High energy is an 80s subgenre, and it was fantastic. All those Divine songs.
Do you think they played the hits at Studio 54, or would you get in there and they're like, oh, they're playing that obscure disco thing because they want to seem cool, when we just want to hear Boogie Oogie Oogie? Play the hits.
I bet from what I understand, they played everything. You should hear people saying, oh my God, they played my song, and proud. I think, I don't know if it was Thelma Houston talking about Never Can Say Goodbye. Either she or Gloria Gaynor said they put my song on and everybody went crazy. Yeah. Come to Me by France Jolie was a huge hit. Yeah.
You interviewed Gloria Gaynor, and my good friend Tom Storr works with her to this day. She flies everywhere and does everything, still doing all of these songs. But, we talk about the lyrical content of disco. It's not really known for that. But a song like I Will Survive, I think Madonna sang it recently in her tour as like an anthem of like getting through this health scare. And I think that's a song that like, it makes you want to dance, but it also is like deeply felt, I feel.
Oh, yeah. Well, all of those, honestly, a lot of the disco diva songs were very deeply felt. I mean, they weren't, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real by Sylvester. That's the gay national anthem. I mean, that is everything we're trying to be as a people. Yeah. I Will Survive, certainly more than women can identify with that notion of a relationship gone wrong. And, and the pain of Don't Leave Me This Way. Yeah, those songs, they are very deeply felt. And that's why we love them. And I think that's why the first generation of out gay guys who were leading bands in the 80s and 90s embraced all of those disco songs. They're like, oh, we're going to really, Jimmy Somerville from Communards and Bronski Beat was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sing every disco song I ever loved. I'm going to do a cover.
Right, because it's drama. It's high drama, but it's also very poignant and moving. Speaking of which, you have a Donna Summer interview in the book. And when I read how you came upon it, I wanted to cry because I relate to it because I think I have tapes like that in my possession as well. But talk to me about the Donna Summer interview that appears in your book.
I used to be the journalism guy coming out of a newspaper back. I had everything but the hat with the little press card in the brim. I was very old school in the way I did stuff. So when it was cassettes, I was very reluctant to carry around micro cassettes with me or regular cassettes even, and record interviews. So you just would take notes longhand, and get down. Somebody would say something great and you'd immediately write it down and then go home and hopefully get the spirit of it all correct. So anyway, my husband, who's better about these things, he's less lazy than I am. He said, you interviewed Donna Summer in 1999. You have got to find the notes. So I'm looking, and I give up. And then we go back, and they're back east. So anyway, and couldn't find them. Well, he screams at me again next time we're home. You've got to find them. So finally I gave in because I knew I was not going to win the argument of being lazy. And I thought, would I have taped the interview? And I'm looking, and I found my broken micro cassette recorder. I didn't know it was broken, but my micro cassette recorder didn't work. And there were about a half a dozen tapes in there. And God damn it, if I didn't have 2 hours of lunch with Donna Summer from 1999. So I immediately went on eBay and bought, because you can't get a micro cassette recorder anymore. You try to buy a brand new one, and it's hundreds of dollars for this $39 item, So I found a used one, and I was like, this has to work for 2 hours, and then I don't care. And so I digitized this lunch, and it was so weird hearing lunch in Nashville in 1999 with Donna Summer. And I digitized it, and so the book ends with an unseen interview with Donna Summer.
Because you had interviewed her for something where you didn't need...
I interviewed her for... No,
you just needed
for TV Guide.
Yeah, like a few quotes. Like, it wasn't like a long-form thing.
Yeah, no, it was like, 30 words out of this 2-hour lunch got used in the thing. And everything that they were curious about at the time, because who thought she would leave us so soon, it was, I love to paint now. I spend all my free time doing watercolors or whatever, And my daughter goes to school, and really I love being a mom. And that's why we moved here, because I could be both. But I'm still writing music, So all this, and I thought, before I listened to the tapes, I was like, did I talk to her about all the disco music? And I listened, and I was like, oh, yeah, we talked about everything over that 2-hour lunch. I mean, we talked about Love to Love You Baby and doing those fake orgasms and doing, and when the gays were mad at her for saying Adam and Steve. So we talked about all of that. So I realized that none of what's in the book has ever seen the light of day before. But the chilling thing to me was she said, I asked her, you never seem like a nostalgia act, even though the songs are older now, or 20 years old now. And it was 1999, so it was about 20 years since those songs. And she said that she basically sings them as if they're fresh and new. She said, I think of my songs as for then and for now and for always, or something like that. And so that's the way the book ends, with a quote, something like that. And I thought, oh, there's when I heard the tape, I was like, and that's the end of the book. And so, yeah, it was kind of great to be able to have that in there and have her address more important stuff than I love to paint. I pick up my daughter after school, which I don't care about. And now her daughters are grown up, so what do we care? So, but yeah, it was fun to unearth that, because you don't, it was this ghostly voice sort of.
Well, and also she was speaking, she was as though she was saying, you're going to be writing a book in X amount of years, and I'm going to give you everything you need. There was something about the things she was saying that were underlying your points. There was a spirituality to her that was so moving in those quotes that I just thought, I don't know, I just thought there was something magic about that interview, and the fact that you recorded it and you didn't record a lot of your interviews back then. She talked about, like, not needing a certain kind of success, and that, like, there was something, like, really beautiful about her that comes through in that interview. That
she had gotten to the place, I think, where she made her peace with her feelings about fame.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof, or how hard it is to stay on top, and should you even want to stay on top of the fame heap.
That was wise. I thought, she was wise.
Yeah, there was a wise. Yeah, there was
figured out how to live. And Last Dance is her favorite song, which I love to hear. Instead of some obscure thing where, you know what I mean? Like, we want, because that is a magical song too. That is a magical song. Yes.
But I love that she called Paul Jabara, who wrote it, crazy. Yeah. So he was crazy. That tickled me, because the more you discover about Paul Jabara, the crazier he seems.
Yeah.
He not only is he in one of my favorite movies, you know, Day of the Locust. You ever see the movie Day of the Locust? Oh my God, you have to see it. It's the most acidic portrait of Hollywood ever.
Yeah.
And Donald Sutherland plays Homer Simpson. That's where the name Homer Simpson comes from. Oh my God, you have to you just have to see this movie. It's so good. But anyway, he is the drag queen who torments Homer Simpson in this. Poor Donald Sutherland.
Right.
And then he also shows up later with in drag with a song called Ocho Rios, which is an 80s disco song. But I didn't know this going into the disco book. He has a album with a suite called Disco Wedding, Disco Honeymoon, Disco Divorce. And it's on Amazon. I played it the other day. It just came on when I asked for something else. And it's just, you know, it's like dun dun da da,
yeah,
dun, dun, you know, and then thump thump and the whole. It is the excess of disco. He also wrote probably the first disco musical on Broadway,
which
is a title of the song I don't remember. It's like, and Don't You Forget It is the way it ends. I think. But it's something Rosenbluth. Anyway, it's he was nuts, and nobody loved disco more than him or drag. And so he's like, I want him in every book I ever write. Paul Jabara, in there somewhere, you know. But it's pretty funny to discover these characters or more about them. But I love that Donna Summer was like, oh no, he was nuts, and she's like, oh yeah, we stayed up all night dancing to it. I was like, yeah, I wonder what you helped stay up all night.
Yeah,
but
I also love that song because they used to play it at Oil Can Harry's when it was disco night. And if you met somebody you liked and you were dancing, and then it got slow, and then you could be like, oh, we could see if there's like something going on here, and like I just think I don't know. I have such a soft spot for that song. I saw Thank God It's Friday, the movie it was from a few years ago, in a double feature with Car Wash. Car Wash is a brilliant movie, by the way.
Hey, Car Wash is really fun.
And it's also the worldview of Car Wash. Everyone is kind of cool with everyone. It's kind of amazing in that way. But Thank God It's Friday is kind of a funny comedy. It's like, I think it got a rap as not being a good movie, but I thought, it's not aiming for Saturday Night Fever grittiness. This is a different thing. And
well, it is Car Wash. It's supposed to be the Car Wash formula of a day in the life of, you know, applied to, you know, to the disco.
Yeah.
And the reason I think Thank God It's Friday doesn't really work is no one's having a good time except the extras in the movie. You know, all of the stars in the movie are having the worst. They're
having problems. That's true.
Yes.
Although there is that dance on the cars outside that is phenomenal with the guy.
Well, yes, and he did a couple of roles on. He was Enrique Mas.
Yeah.
In Golden Girls.
Oh, nice.
So he had two big roles in Golden Girls, but. Yeah, he dances. The actor who plays it dances on top of cars in front of what was then the Osco Disco on La Cienega.
Nice.
It became a Filene's basement. Sadly, they knocked it down. But and now I don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
But some outlet store, you know, over there near the Beverly Center. And but he gets on top of the car and he goes dancing. Everything else is bullshit.
Right. I think that's kind of true.
Yeah. It's kind of a great moment in that, but I realized it's like, why is Thank God It's Friday not that fun? And I was like, because everyone's having a shitty night, you know. They're just this one's having an affair, that one's taking drugs they're not used to, this one is, you know, this one's underage and their father hates her, you know. Everybody's got troubles.
Yeah,
I do a whole thing on disco movies, and I
thank you for the Xanadu full two-page photo, the Xanadu shout-out, the Xanadu love. My Xana crew friends will appreciate that.
Yes, it's the great roller disco movie. Whether it's, you know, there are Roller Boogie and Skate Town USA. I watch the movies by myself because I couldn't put my husband through it because he does not have the bad movie gene that I do. And
how have you made it work? How have you made it work all these years?
You watch different things. I would much rather watch a terrible movie.
Yeah,
the worse they are, the more, you know.
Yeah.
I watched one recently called Bat Pussy, and basically it's a woman in a Batman costume on a hoppity hop.
What's
and then she takes her top off. And
Oh,
you know those balls that you jump up and down on?
Yeah.
You know, like it's like a yoga ball, but with a handle on it. You jump up and down.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's basically topless and doing that. Oh, I thought this is the greatest movie ever. And that's all it was. It was an ugly couple having sex, and then they cut to her on the hoppity hop for an hour and a half. I thought this is the best movie. But with the disco movies, one night I said to him, he said, well, which was better, Skate Town USA or Roller Boogie? And I said, well, Skate Town USA is better than Roller Boogie because Skate Town USA is worse. I said, if Roller Boogie had been worse, it would have been better. And he looked at me like, you're out of your mind. This is why we don't watch the same thing.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Roller Boogie tries to be a good movie. Skate Town USA is a terrible movie. So it relishes its own terribleness.
But
so
I remember
this is fun.
having a copy of Rona Barrett's Hollywood, and there was a picture of Patrick Swayze in leather pants from Skate Town USA, and the headline was Patrick Swayze Drives Him Crazy. Burned into my mind. My mind.
And he did and does. It was his movie debut.
Yes, and there's
doing this disco scene. That disco, that's my favorite photo in the book. Is there's like all these guys led by Patrick Swayze on roller skates in lycra pants, and their legs are like practically over their heads.
And his is the highest.
Huge, yes, of course, because he's Patrick Swayze. But there's this huge array of disco balls. Because one disco ball is nice.
Yeah.
But an array of disco balls.
That's what you need.
Like, it's an array of balls, basically the whole picture. But it's disco and otherwise. But it is very much a terrible good, a wonderfully terrible.
You talked
there's a lot of that. But Abby, I have to tell you about Abby, which was originally called The Black Exorcist.
Right.
It's a blaxploitation movie. Carol Speed is Abby. And Juanita Moore is in it as well. Remember Juanita from Imitation of Life?
Okay.
Anyway, so classic actress, horrible role. But I think she I don't know if she dies or what, because bad stuff happens because Abby is possessed by the devil. And they have William Marshall, who was Blackula, plays the exorcist. And he has to get the devil out of poor Carol Speed on the dance floor.
Oh, so the exorcism happens on the dance floor.
On the dance floor, and a disco ball explodes and goes crashing into the bar. And the devil, when he leaves her body, says, I was tired of that bitch anyway. That's the voice of the devil. I laughed. You will love Abby.
All right, I have to watch it. I have to find it.
There's so many. Well, I do follow the disco canon that I've laid out.
Yeah.
In this book, watch them all because they're all
amazing,
for better or worse. There's something wonderful and or hilariously bad in many of them.
Yeah,
and they're all worthwhile. Some are a little bit of a challenge to get through. The Apple, for instance.
Yeah,
like that is the ultimate WTF movie. You just sit there and go, this is what the 80s were going to be. This is deranged.
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah. Even if you like bad movies, you have you do sit there with a WTF look on your face. Like, I don't know what I'm watching. But, so there's that. But I think my philosophy of life is embrace all of it because life is way better if you like the good and the bad.
Yeah.
It's the facts of life. I do. I just think it's way more fun if you're like, love a great movie and love a terrible movie. Something can be fun without being good.
Yes.
And that's why people were like, well, you didn't see the Donna Summer musical. I said, oh, I saw it twice. And they're like, really? Was it that good? I said, no, it wasn't good at all. I said it just was really fun. And I was like, it's way more fun than good.
I think a big part of life is just liking stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
That's why you and I are friends.
Yes.
I always think of us dancing to, what's the Madonna song that samples ABBA?
Hung Up.
You and I, it was new. And we were at some event. I feel like it was marriage.
My images that was on Vine Street at like the Palace or Avalon or whatever.
Yes, it was the Hollywood Palace.
Okay.
And it was then I'm right. It was a marriage equality benefit.
Yeah.
Pink was there.
Really?
And there were celebrities and stuff. And you and I, that song came on. Andy Bell was there.
Nice.
Neil Patrick Harris was there. But yeah, anyway, but you and I heard that song and we were just like, let's do this. And we went out there and there was you never saw two white boys cutting a rug like that in your life. Okay.
Were we the first ones out there?
No, everybody was.
Yeah.
But we
tore
first.
some shit up. Yes.
Oh, we were on fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Saturday Night Fever so much. It's literally one of my top 2 or 3 favorite movies.
It's a great movie.
It's like this gritty indie movie that became a phenomenon.
Favorite movie.
Whose? Yeah. Gene Siskel's?
Gene Siskel's favorite movie.
He bought the white suit. I find it so moving. Like Tony Manero is like a hero of mine in fiction in terms of somebody that came from someplace but longed for something else but didn't have the words or the feelings and the struggle of that. You talked to Donna Pescow and Fran Drescher about the movie. I remember at the time thinking that Carolyn Gorney was sort of no Travolta. Like she wasn't a star. Like, who is this girl? She's not the best dancer. I watch it now and I'm like, she is perfection for that character. Like, kind of being pretentious and you could see through her, but trying to be this girl. Like, she's trying. I find that so moving. I could cry thinking about it. Yeah.
She didn't want to do an interview unless I paid her. And I couldn't.
But you asked Donna Pescow about her coat. You asked Fran Drescher about Travolta. I think Travolta is an electrifying dancer in this, but it's not just about technique. It's about the way dancing makes him feel about himself. And you can see it. And I see that in other people. And I try to embody that too when I go to class and stuff like that. It's not an arrogance, but it's a sort of like celebration of something. Like, I don't know. I was just wondering if you could help me articulate this feeling.
No, I think it's what you were talking about with the woman on the cover of the book. It's the disco, but feeling it. He's feeling himself for the first time. He doesn't feel like the fuck up. He doesn't feel like my brother's a priest. I'm working at a paint store. I'm a nothing.
Yeah.
Which is what his parents made him feel like.
Yeah.
And when he's on that dance floor, he's whatever the opposite of nothing. He's not nothing. He's everything.
He's
on
everything.
That dance floor. Yeah.
And it's so moving to me. I don't know. I could cry thinking about it.
It's such a beautiful. That's the only disco movie that is a great film. It's not a great nostalgic film. It's not a great, there's no qualifier. It is a great film.
Yes.
And it's way grittier than you remember.
Oh my gosh.
Not the dance number.
No, and the when they're all like pulling a train on Donna Pescow, like that.
Poor Donna.
Dark.
Who would do that to Angie and her rabbit fur coat? I feel terrible. So they do. They're mean to her in the back of the car. Yeah. And she kind of had asked for it, and then when she got it, it was terrible.
There's a few other things in your book that I want to touch on before we wrap it up. Yes. The Village People as a phenomenon are head-scratching to me because they were super gay, super mainstream. To this day, Trump dances to YMCA. How did they happen?
I think it was they were. I mean, they
not only did this gay thing kind of sneak through the side door, they were everywhere. Like,
yeah, it just hit, and I think that they were. It was something had to be the soundtrack of the years after Stonewall for gay people, and so there was something brave about them being embracing these gay stereotypes. Or archetype. There's less stereotype, more archetype of what gay men thought was sexy. But they played the are they or aren't they game that Liberace played, for all those years. But suddenly it's the 70s, and they're all cute. They're all, So I'm sitting there ogling the construction worker, and so is my mother. Right. I mean, it was that kind of thing.
I feel like he was the hottest one. I feel like he was. Yeah.
And he'd love you to death. Remember that song? Yeah. His one solo number and Can't Stop the Music. The only time he did lead vocals was I'll love you to death.
Yeah.
I love, which is terrible considering what happened in the 80s. Don't love me to death, okay? Let's not, okay?
I had this. Yeah. I mean, as a teenager in Arizona, they were mainstream and we all knew their music. And I think there was a hint that they were gay. But I didn't have the frame of reference or anything like. Nobody thought that. So I think to a lot of America, they just seemed like a group in costumes and dancing. And
yes.
But I used to have this idea that their songwriting sessions would be like they would show up in the studio and one guy would be like, "Guess where I got fucked last night? YMCA." Wait, go back. Say that again. Like, I felt like they were just like, you know what? I had a daisy chain with two sailors last night. Hold on. Wait, go back. Where?
In the name.
Yeah, it just felt like that's their. But your interview, it seemed like they were working like dogs. They were having fun, but it wasn't like this hotbed of gay sex.
No, not with each other. I think they were sisters, basically.
Right.
But some of them, the cops, at least one of the original cop was straight.
Yeah.
You know, and he's caused all this trouble and gotten the rights to the name back, so the other guys from the original can't perform that music anymore. You know, it's very contentious. But he's the one always saying, "Oh, it wasn't about that." But the two other guys who were the architects of it couldn't have been gayer.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's that. And but yeah, it is a head scratcher. But it's also, so is all these years later, you're like, there were women who had the hots for Liberace. It's like, do you not have eyes and ears? It's like, he makes me seem like John Wayne, or, you know, it's like, give me a break. But, yeah, it's just, I also think in those days, all you had to say, I am not gay. And everyone would go like, see, he's not gay. He said he's not gay.
Yeah.
You know, so, and now we're just like, oh, Mary, please.
I know. Like, the people could say it and we would buy it. But, the song is part of Trump's lore now, which is so weird to me.
Weird. Well, he's so oblivious to the meaning of anything. Yeah. You know, so it's like, it probably was, what's that song they play at the ballparks? Yeah. Let's play that. You know, I mean, there's no thought to it. Does he know it's a Village People song? Maybe not.
You have a big glossy photo of the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, which I love and have watched many times over. The irony of that is that Mike Brady, who is gay, is probably the worst dancer of the bunch.
Yes.
And there's a few times where you see him literally give up the choreography. He's like, fuck it. End of song. Like, not a great dancer, our Mike Brady.
Terrible. You do watch it and you scratch your head thinking, what the hell is this? And also, I mean, it's so, for people who don't know, the Brady Bunch, everybody knows, you hope they do. So sitcom, blended family sitcom, late 60s, early 70s. They decide they're going to redo it. They do a variety show. Doesn't last very long, but they get the producer of HR Puff and Stuff, which is the reason everybody who's between 50 and 65 now, 55 and 65 is out of their mind. Okay, why we're all, because their aesthetic blew our mind.
Sid and Marty Krofft, who you speak to, one of them.
Love them.
Did you speak?
I do. I talked. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Marty's gone now, but Sid. Yes, Sid said I gave everyone a star moment. He said I was crazy, but they all followed me down the path, and we did great stuff. But it's like there's an episode where the Brady Bunch, the fictional family, has been given their own variety show. None of them is a particularly good singer or dancer. They're, other than Florence Henderson, really. They're doing this variety show, and the choreography is terrible, and the singing is terrible, but they're doing disco numbers. And as Susan Olsen, who played Cindy Brady, the youngest one, said, we were doing the disco version of Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye because it was in public domain at that point. It was so old.
And they did the Lucy theme. And they would be like, Lucy, disco, and then the next song.
I interviewed him. I interviewed the guy who did Dance, Disco Lucy. Yeah. I found he lives here in California. He lives in like Sherman Oaks or something.
Amazing.
But anyway, it was this crazy show, and they, you know, it would build and build and build, and then the maid would come out dressed as a duck, and they'd do Disco Duck with Rip Taylor as her boyfriend, and he makes Liberace look straight.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, and she hated it. Apparently the actors hated it as her boyfriend. But yeah, so it's like they came out in duck costumes and sang Disco Duck, and you're watching this as if this is normal. You know, we all talk about normalizing weird stuff, and, you know, now in terms of politics, and also, we normalize weird stuff in terms of variety shows.
For sure. And you know who was feeling themselves in that show was Greg Brady, Barry Williams.
Yeah,
he was like, this is my time to shine. He's feeling
not
himself.
Bad. He can sing.
He does good, but you could tell he was like loving it. But also,
poor
like,
Mike.
There was that Chips episode with the roller disco, but all of the people, all of the celebrities look thrilled to be there. Like, you feel like, I don't know, you feel like there would be more discomfort around, I guess I'm going to try to do this disco thing. No, everybody seemed like they were into it. Nobody seemed to be like, oh gosh, this is like jury duty of the stars.
Yeah, you do. That's a great way to put it. Yes, no, they really seem to be having it. But when they start announcing names,
you can't believe it.
They just keep saying, here's, and remember our friend Marsha Wallace, here's Marsha Wallace. And I was like, God, you're a good sport, lady. You'll do that. Yeah, they have this disco episode of a cop show. And they're all on roller disco as a benefit. And every person who took a breath in the 70s on television is in this episode.
The whole show is the list of people.
It's not
unbelievable.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But there was so much TV. I mean, now there's stuff that just seems crass, like to me now, the unbelievable stuff on TV is crass. Then the unbelievable stuff was just surreal.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that it was in bad taste as much as it just was like, now we're going to bring this, like, okay, going back to something else. Skate Town, USA. Flip Wilson plays the son of Flip Wilson in drag and Billy Barty, the little person comedian. Okay. So it's sort of like, okay, that makes sense. So Geraldine and Billy Barty are the parents of Flip Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you nod and you're like, it's like finding out that the Wicked Witch of the West and the Munchkin Mayor are the parents of Dorothy. It's like that kind of thing. And you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I see that. It's deranged. It is just, there was so much stuff that was.
Yeah.
But that's the stuff that we try to embrace in the disco book.
There's so much love that comes across in this book. Like, it looks like a ton of work, but a ton of love. Like, what did it mean to you to finish it and to hold it in your hand?
Well, you're done. You're so happy to finish anything. But when the book comes and the baby is cute, because you're like, oh, please let the baby be cute. Oh, please. And then it comes and you're like, oh, this kind of is good. I'm really proud of this. I have to say, I really like this. I like this book a lot, and I love disco a lot. And I've always written, and I think you're probably this way as a writer as well. We write about things we love, and that's very evident on the page. I'm not trying to take something down. And when I do make fun of something like the Ethel Merman disco album, it's done with love and not derision.
Well, also you gave the Ethel Merman disco number 2 pages, 3 pages. Like,
I'd have given it more if I could have. I mean, I'd have included a record with it if I could have. You have to. It's the ultimate disco article. Please, I wrote about. I mean, it took me way longer to write about Cher's Hell on Wheels video than it did to watch the Hell on Wheels video. It is so Hell on Wheels. This is the gift to all of your listeners.
She was good at roller skating.
Yes, Hell on Wheels. Find it on YouTube. You will scratch your head because it's drag queens, it's gay porn, it's exercise, it is the 70s, it's the 80s, it's everything. That's just it. It's everything, and it's Cher looking amazing. And I think she's got like animal print on.
I think so.
And like her skates match her thong.
Yeah.
It's kind of everything we loved about 1980, it's just when disco and new wave are coming together in that moment, about the time of Xanadu, and we're looking at all that, and it's like suddenly exercise wear is going to start being a thing. You can sort of see
she's skating right into
But they were like, it looks like a gay porn movie with drag queens, and men with serious mustaches. There are big trucks in it. I think there are animals. There might be steer in it. It is the most fucked up thing. The moment this podcast is over, you need to go find it on YouTube. Hell on Wheels. It is. It's everything that we should and shouldn't love. And we do anyway,
I know, in one bite-sized chunk.
Yes.
Everyone should pick up Frank's book, Disco. You've got some events coming up.
This? You mean this book?
Yes, look at it. It looks so good.
She's pretty and her butt on the cover.
Totally. You're appearing at Book Soup on October 15th, which is going to be right when this comes out. So if you're hearing this earlier than you normally would, I'm putting it out early to get that in. And then you've got Vroman's in Pasadena, which is a very nice store, on the 24th.
Yeah, Vroman's is a swell on the 24th of October. And then the moment the Pride Parade in Palm Springs is over on November 3rd, I'm dessert. Okay, you come over, you buy a book, I'll sign it for you. And that's at Just Fabulous, which is a store. As the owner said to me, it's not a store, it's a lifestyle. And I was like, you tell him, bitch. It's like, that's true. It is. And I buy more crap there. It's a great store. The taste is really, the taste of that store is the taste of this book. You know, it's like, it's fun, it's fabulous, it's kitschy, it nods to the past. I love that store, and I love the guys who run it, and the guy who runs it, and Steve, and it's fun to be going back. People have been very kind, you know. Like, I got to go back and watch What Happens Live.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be the bartenders and tender. And so it was fun. Now I have one where I'm really fat. That was the first book. Then I have one, the drag book, I was really thin. And now I'm in between, but heading to, you know, trying not to get any fatter. But it's like, I was like, I've got one at every weight. I now have a clip at every weight.
You're like Oprah. You're the Oprah of.
I wish I rolled out a wagon with fat.
Yeah.
I really, you know, it was like.
I have a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. What's your favorite disco tchotchke? Because you have some funny, like, artifacts, lunchboxes. There are these crazy mugs that I'm like, those are amazing.
Oh, I have 2 sets of those. Jonathan Adler, whom I adore and know, and, you know, and Simon Doonan, who's a wonderful pop culture pundit himself. They did macho mugs, and they were 3 mugs, 2-sided, with all 6 archetypes from the Village People. So they don't really look like the Village People, but they look like the archetypes of the Village People.
Bad. I bet they're collector's items. I got to look that in.
It was only a couple years ago.
Okay.
They're a couple years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Macho mugs.
They'll cost you macho mugs. They'll cost you more than they did at the time. Yeah. I ended up buying a set full price, and then I bought a set. I take it back. I don't have 2 full sets. I have 2 of the 3 of the second set.
Oh, all right.
But I do use those. But I have.
Yes, I want the macho mugs.
There's a disco mug. I think it's in the book, where the O is the handle, and that's mine from when I was a kid.
Oh, I love it.
So it's fun.
All right.
And it's not in the book because it was tough getting through to the people that I needed to get the rights from. I have a Joe Disco Snoopy pillowcase that's mine from when I was a kid. And he's like, you know, in the white suit with the arm up.
You talked to Denny Terrio, which we didn't even get into.
Yes. Denny Terrio taught John Travolta to dance, and he was the host of Dance Fever.
Amazing.
And he came up with the finger point, and he's an emoji now. Who gets to be an emoji?
I know.
Okay?
And everyone was like, there were always rumors that he slept with Merv Griffin, but I don't know if that's true or anything like that. But that's
Merv Griffin would have liked it. So that's why there was like a suit over that, a sexual discrimination suit. But I don't know if he got. I don't know if.
Oh, I forgot about the suit.
How to put it in a delicate way. But I don't know if he's in the running.
Denny Terrio goes out and does cruises and disco shit, and he's still.
He's great.
Yes, I'm so excited about that.
To him.
You have the Solid Gold dancers in the book. As a dancer, I used to look up to them and like, oh my God, they're so amazing. And now as an adult, I watch them and I'm like, oh, that was 2 counts of 8 that they could have figured out in the elevator on the way to the thing. Like, just in terms of technical, like you're going to do the thing and the thing and the Darcel's going to, we got it. Like it wasn't the height of, they had a bag of tricks is my point. Okay, here's my final question.
Yes. I hope I know the answer.
No, it's a hypothetical. Say you could go back to the height of disco or a disco moment and have a night. What would it look like? What would you do? And while you're thinking about it, I would say that I would wear I would fit into Angel's Flights in a spectacular way, and a polyester shirt. My favorite outfit in Saturday Night Fever is not the white suit; it's the Dusty Rose pants when he's getting ready, and then he zips them over his fly. Jesus H. And then I would go to a disco, and it would be fun and sexy. And then I think I want to have sex in a van. For some reason, that feels like a.
Do you want to be Donna Pascal and have everyone all the boys line up?
Possibly, but it needs to be a van. It needs to be a van that says something on the side that has a lot of bravado. There was a guy in my hometown, and I remember once he was talking about Angel's Flight pants in shop class, and he overheard me. I remember him saying, like, you can't wear underwear with them. Like, that was the thing. And my ears were about to burst out of my head, and he noticed. He's like, don't listen to us, or I'm going to break your scrawny little neck. Anyway, on the back of his car, he had the words Dream Maker. Like, and I just thought, oh, man, that guy fucks. I bet he fucks. And so I think a van with something like that, the outfit, you get the idea. And then
Gay 101, always eroticize your tormentor. Always.
So what's your 70s?
Every one of us. What would my 70s? I get to, I am also thin enough to fit in a disco outfit.
Yes.
And I am wearing a Kiana shirt.
Yes, you are.
With a photorealist print, because I do like things that have reproduced photos.
I like that.
But my Jordache jeans would be,
okay.
My original ones.
Denim.
And some, but real platform shoes instead of those sort of work booty looking things.
Yeah.
That I wore. Not those fry boots, but an actual platform. And I'm the writer I became 10 years later, where I could walk in anywhere and sail in. And I have that experience at Studio 54. That's what I want. I want that feeling of, because it used to be, when I was covering all that stuff in New York in the late 80s and early 90s, you knew all the gay doormen, so you could go to whatever gay club you wanted.
Right.
And you'd look at the line and go, I'm not standing in that. And you walk to the front and there was a guy named Derek, and Derek, he just made you feel like you were the homecoming queen, and you were, those velvet ropes came down, and you were like, Derek,
Yeah.
And it was like, you picked me last in gym, well, pick me first now, bitches, And,
so it's
and
that
right
feeling,
in.
But at Studio 54 and Disco Clothes.
Yeah, but it's at Studio.
Also before AIDS, too. That's not nothing. That feeling of like...
I was lucky I came out in high school, and it was pre-AIDS. So I had a love affair without any
without that
fear at all,
right?
And
freedom, the freedom that disco represented was real.
Well, we were all, when the first disco, 1970, supposedly is the law. That's the sort of the start of the disco movement, at least in New York. And it's not even a year after Stonewall, and here are these gay people going, we're going to go to this dance, and we're going to be the first ones in. It's going to be all about us. So that was kind of amazing. So I think I would like to, if I can have two disco wishes since I wrote the book,
you can have as many as you want.
I would like to go back and see what the loft was like, because it was basically someone's house, and they had this loft space, and they couldn't charge you to get in, so they passed the hat, you threw money in it, and that's sort of where the modern 70s disco movement came in. But,
I love it.
But I tell you, I'm lucky. I mentioned, my love affair from high school. I still text with the boyfriend from then.
Amazing.
My 6 guys that I went to the bistro with in Chicago and danced the night away. My head is in a spin. My feet don't touch the ground. I stay in touch with all of them as well. And I'm very lucky that we're all still around and knock wood quick. And that we made it through the dark times of the AIDS crisis, and then are here to sort of cheer each other on, even if we don't get to spend a lot of time together. But, it's nice on your birthday, and that you're going to hear from your high school boyfriend, your college buddies, your friend who, was your mentor at your first job. I don't get rid of people. I don't see them all, but I'm not, if I've ever loved you, I still love you. That's the way I look at it. It doesn't mean I want to hang around with you, or I can deal with
you can't have my macho. You can't have my macho mugs.
But it doesn't mean I don't still love you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why, if you ever love somebody, you should always love them, and if it was a good thing. I mean, if it was abusive, that's another story. But if you had a good relationship with somebody, you don't see them, you can still. That's what I came to recently. I was like, as someone came to my first disco book signing, and it's someone that I'm not really eager to see in a social setting and stuff, but it made me so happy that he was there. And I just said, I love you. And I meant it. And I do love them. And I don't need to get together at all. But it's, but I did. And I have
a little of that going on. I have a little of that going on in my life too. It's things change as you get older.
I do admire them. You could still love and admire them and cherish the memories you had without trying to make more of them.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't you tell someone if you ever loved them, tell them you love them. And life's too short. Just, be a schmoop and say, oh, you're the best, and mean it. And then, don't answer the call.
I think be a schmoop is
a schmoop and then a schmuck later. It's fine. Schmoop first, schmuck later. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's a lot of love that comes through in your book. I'm so glad you wrote it. I look forward to seeing you at one or more of your events, and everyone should pick it up. Congratulations.
Thank you. I hope everyone feels the way you and I felt dancing to Hung Up at the Hollywood Palace. I love
it. I was into it.
It was, oh my God.
Yeah.
I long for that feeling again where it's just like, holy shit, we have to dance to this, you know, and that was just one of those moments. That was my bonding moment with the wonderful Dennis Hensley.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that memory.
And you dance like Tony Manero. You are.
Thank you.
That pelvis can... Ladies and gentlemen, that pelvis, I will tell you, I've seen only from afar. But
just get me in the back of a van. And no, I'm just joking. This never happened.
Dream Maker or whatever.
Dream Maker. All right, Frank, I love
Dennis
you.
Hensley, Dream Maker. Anyway, yes,
Dennis
thank
Hensley,
you.
Dream Maker. Oh, and then this guy got somebody pregnant, and we crossed out Dream and put Baby on the top of it one day as a prank.
Well, don't get pregnant, for God. You're old enough to know not to get pregnant, Dennis. Jeez, go buy my disco book instead and buy condoms with it.
Yes,
okay?
exactly. All right, Frank, I love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Frank DeCaro. Check out his book. Pick it up. Disco. You will be glad you did, and it will look beautiful on your coffee table. All right. So this happened last week. I went to see the singer Bright Light, at a club called the Moroccan Room in downtown LA. I went with my friend Tom Goss, who's been a podcast guest before, and his husband Mike. And Tom knows Bright Light a bit, who goes by Rod Thomas, I believe, is the offstage name. Anyway, it was a really fun show. He had two dancers. He has really catchy songs. It's like if you love Pet Shop Boys and like Bronski Beat and that sort of vibe. It's an erasure kind of thing, and he just puts on a really fun show. And I met him afterwards, and we might do the podcast together. So stay tuned for that. And also, Darren Hayes from Savage Garden happened to be in the audience, and I've been talking to his camp about doing a podcast with him. Check a Cherry Cola. Remember that song? I love it. Anyway, he's got a book coming out, and hopefully that'll happen too. But it was a really fun night, and something really cool happened before the show. I got to the restaurant we were meeting at earlier than Tom and Mike, and so I had a few minutes, and I hadn't done my 5 minutes of Duolingo that day with my Spanish, so I bust out the app, and I'm doing my thing, and the ending, once you finish a lesson, it makes like a really cute, chirpy, like da-da, like noise, and this woman at the next table, you know, a little ways away, heard it. She goes, "Oh, you're doing Duolingo." Anyway, we started a conversation, and it turns out that she's learning Italian because she and her husband, who are teachers, bought a house in Sicily in Italy for like $10,000 or something like that. Anyway, and we just started this whole wonderful conversation, and when Tom and Mike got there, it continued, and it was because of that Duolingo chirp, and that's like the second or third time that's happened when I've been out somewhere and I try to get my lesson in, and it starts up a conversation. So I can't say anything in Spanish, really. No, I do okay. But sometimes I feel like I'm not learning, and sometimes I feel like I'm really doing good. But anyway, it's been enriching, and it's fun when you talk to new people, and they were delightful. It was a delightful night all the way around, and also something on my dream board. Bright Light was on my dream board. But I really want to interview him, so it takes it all the way to the podcast moment. So anyway, it was a really fun night. I want to mention one other thing that I've been doing lately is organizing little get-togethers to do postcards to send to swing states for the election to support Democrats up and down the ballot. And there's an organization called Postcards to Voters that I work with. And, you know, it's all automated now. You're like, I want to do some postcards tonight. How many do you want? These are the candidates, you know, whatever. So after I finish recording this, I'm going to go do some for Will Rollins, the gay Democrat that's running in Palm Springs for the House of Representatives. So that'll be fun. I'm going to use lots of gay colors, I decided. But anyway, if you're in LA and you want to be part of these little get-togethers that I do, hit me up on Dennis@DennisHensley.com, and I'll let you know when the next one is. And if you're listening and you want to help out with that, we always need money for stamps. So go to my DennisAnyone.net, Venmo me, and just say, hey, this is for the election. Because I went to buy postcard stamps the other day. You guys, they're so much more expensive than you remember. Anyway, but we're doing something, and I like a little craftivism. And the The fumes from the markers are nice. So it's a win-win for everybody. All right, that's enough for this week. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Replacement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye!